At the end of the G20, only the Sino-US Secretary of State did not speak out. At the same time, Trump himself said that tariffs on China could be canceled. But there is a precondition. Why did the Sino-US Secretary of State not meet? What conditions did Trump propose to cancel tariffs? Hello everyone, welcome to today's Netizen's Point of View. On April 24th, local time, 20 groups, that is, the G20 Secretary General and the Sino-US Secretary General, met in Washington, D.C. It is reported that during the two-day discussion, representatives of the two countries exchanged views on issues such as global macroeconomic situation, international financial structure, and promoting African economic growth, and warned of the uncertainty of the global economy caused by the increase in tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. At the end of the meeting, the G20 Secretary General, the South African Secretary General, denied that the protectionist and multilateralist trade system has been widely accepted by all countries. In the case of the ongoing market turmoil caused by the tariff policy, the G20 Secretary General will focus on tariff issues and seek to build a more fair, open, and free trade system. This is not surprising. However, there is one thing that is out of the U.S. expectation. That is, the long-awaited Sino-US high-level meeting was not held during the G20 meeting. It is reported that U.S. Secretary General Bill Clinton had high hopes for this World Bank and International Monetary Fund organized spring meeting, claiming that he may hold a meeting with the Chinese high-level officials. However, the fact is that the Chinese Minister of Finance, Lan Foan, and the G20 Secretary General of South Africa, Gordon Gwana, the European Commission for Economic and Production Affairs, the British Finance Minister, and the British Prime Minister held a bilateral meeting and exchange, but only revealed that they were deep-seated. For the Trump administration, which took the initiative to negotiate a large-scale reduction in tariffs on China before the G20 meeting, the Sino-US high-level meeting was undoubtedly a major loss. For the past 6 months, the U.S. has been claiming that China and the U.S. are negotiating tariffs and is looking forward to reaching a trade agreement in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, the Chinese side has not even given the U.S. a chance to hold a meeting, which is enough to prove the Trump administration's self-conceded concession. It did not satisfy the Chinese side and did not put an end to this round of tariffs. The Chinese side hopes that the U.S. understands that China's attitude on tariffs is consistent. It is not willing to fight and is not afraid to fight. If the U.S. wants to promote Sino-US dialogue, and even a higher level of dialogue, it should stop threatening to blackmail, return to equality, and respect mutual understanding. However, the U.S. side did not seem to listen. On the 25th, Trump told reporters that the U.S. side could cancel tariffs on China, provided that China could give the U.S. side some substantial benefits, such as opening up the Chinese market to the U.S. From the promise not to continue to raise tariffs on China, to the possibility of actively negotiating a reduction in tariffs, to the specific conditions for the cancellation of tariffs, the Trump administration's attitude on tariffs on China clearly shows a softening trend. However, this softening will not be unconditional. Instead, the U.S. side will have to take the lead in Sino-US economic and trade relations. According to reporters, the Trump administration simplified the tariff negotiation route and used it as a template to carry out equivalent tariff negotiations. These negotiation categories include tariff and cooperation, non-tariff trade barriers, product origin and location rules, and more. Some analysts believe that whether the U.S. side is optimistic about Sino-US tariff negotiations or releases news that Sino-US leaders have reached out to China, Trump's administration is using pressure on China to force China to speed up the process of tariff negotiations. However, the U.S. side will not easily agree to the conditions set out by the U.S. Because the current U.S. administration has not given up the equivalent tariff strategy, nor has it given up the sanctions against Chinese companies, Sino-US tariff negotiations have not yet returned to normal. In other words, before discussing the specific plan to reduce tariffs, the U.S. side should act in a timely manner to stop this unilateral bullying that undermines global market stability, rather than continue to use this as a bargaining chip to force China to give in. Okay, friends, that's all for today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.